Dit is Bergkamp! Dit is Bergkamp!
Persie, ja!
Daar is hij! Ja!
Daar is Klaassen, goal!
Hi there and welcome to podcast 59 from Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. I'm Michael Statham, as usual. Mike Bell is here, our website founder and editor. But also I've got a special guest here today for you, and it's Jeroen Thijssen, who is the head researcher for the Netherlands for Football Manager, that famous game that you probably all know. Today we're going to be discussing a lot to do with the Netherlands national team, including the likes of Dest Ihattaren, Weghorst, what's their future with the Netherlands. Plenty more as well with the upcoming games against Germany and Estonia to talk about. But also, we've got the Champions League and Europa League draws involving Dutch clubs in Europe. That was announced this week. What do we think of their chances? Plenty more around that too. We hope that you enjoy this podcast. We're available on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Football Nation Radio. Make sure wherever you listen, you drop us a like, subscribe, show us your support. Plenty more to be coming on our website and our YouTube channel over the coming days involving the Netherlands. So make sure you keep in touch on those platforms. So Mike, Jeroen, let's start talking about the Netherlands. They've made their final squad selection and there's a few contentious ones, mainly to do with the players that aren't in the squad rather than the ones that seem to be in there. And one that actually came up quite a lot in our questions via Twitter was about PSV midfielder Mo Ihattaren, who's very young, he's 17, and at the moment there's a bit of confusion whether he'll choose the Netherlands or Morocco. Mike, I want to get your opinion first of all about whether you think that he's ready for the national team, because if you call him up, you tie him down to the Netherlands, but isn't it a bit early for that?
Yeah, he is only 17. He's only played a handful of games. Looks to be a great talent for PSV, but I do think that calling him up right now would just be for the sake of getting him tied down to the national team. I don't think he's as good in a position as, say, a Gini Wijnaldum. Donny van de Beek's ahead of him as well. He might have came into the squad instead of him, but yeah, it's just, for me, it's a worry that in the future, Ihattaren is going to be one of the options for the number 10 position. We've already lost Ziyech to Morocco. Koçu at Feyenoord has decided to play for Turkey, and Ihattaren's one that you look at coming through at the moment. That he's going to be a superstar, and you can't really fathom why Netherlands would want to tie him down as soon as possible. He's meant to be included in the under-21 squad, but I think he decided not to accept that as well, so he's just going to keep playing for the Netherlands under-19s lower than that for the time being, and he's just not ready to make that decision yet. You just need to hope that the players around him at PSV, ones like Ibrahim Afellay, who made the decision for Netherlands over Morocco, will help persuade him to decide on orange. But I'm really hoping that Ronald Koeman's constantly in his ear and telling him that he has plans for him, because he's one player that I don't want Netherlands to lose.
First off, still thank you for having me. It's nice to be on this podcast.
Not the first time, of course, is it? You were on our live podcast a little while ago, weren't you?
We did a live one. Was it 2 seasons ago, or was it last season?
I think it was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. So good to be back. Thank you for allowing me again. I guess it was nice enough. It's this is a tough question actually. The Mo Ihattaren ordeal. I would say right now I wouldn't pick him, because he is right now still just too young, and he's still a bit flaky. He's a fantastic talent. There's no doubt about that. He can play in multiple positions. He can play as an 8 or a 10 even. He could perhaps cut in from the left wing. But we have Germany coming up, and I don't believe that you can select him for a match against Germany. That's you can put him on in the 89th minute and see what happens, and then tie him down. But that's a bit of a waste of a spot. You can play him against Estonia. I mean, that's not the strongest team to have a young talent play against. But would that be fair to the current players that are in the squad in the first place? And would that actually be fair to Ihattaren as well? It's complicated. Will he choose Holland? Will he choose Morocco? Ultimately, he will have to decide. Obviously, I always hope that a player picks the Dutch squad, but in the end, it has to be a decision that the player is for himself. And if he chooses Morocco because that is what he favours, and that's fine. What Koeman should do, I mean, it's complicated, but I would just be open and explain what the chances or the possibilities are, and how he will see Ihattaren fill spots between now and I don't know, 4 or 5 years time. 4 or 5 years time, he is quite likely to be a starting player in the Dutch lineup as well, as long as he keeps progressing. And then again, you've got the situation where Morocco is also looking at how they perform, the team they have. Yeah, it's also an interesting country to choose. I mean, Ziyech's gone there, Idrissi is going as well. So from that point of view, I can see him pick Morocco as well. It's difficult.
It is difficult. He's a great talent, and he's standing out for PSV game by game. He's getting better and better. But yeah, he is a little bit young, and perhaps too young to be called up by Ronald Koeman. But of course, it's a situation where you can tie him down. But do you want to be tying down a player who is kind of 50-50 between the two countries? You want players that really want to be playing for their country, and not someone for doing it just for the sake of it. So I guess it's, at the end of the day, it's down to the player. But Kyle asked on Twitter, what are the chances for him choosing Oranje? Well, at the minute, it looks quite low, because he's been hinting in the media that he might well be interested in playing for Morocco. I think his family wants him to do that. But Kyle also asked this question, guys. Who can be the potential number 10 for Oranje in the future?
For me, I'd be looking at Ajax's under-19 squad this season, Nachi Univar. He's a superb talent as well. He could also choose another country, being with Turkish roots. But yeah, for me, he's got a whole package for someone so young, 17. He looks to be the next talent from Ajax, going to go on to be something special. And a few 4 or 5 years' time, he could be ready for the Dutch national team. More now, you've got Gini Wijnaldum, and then after that, it's probably going to be Donny van de Beek. Then after that, I'll look at Univar or Ihattaren if he chooses Holland.
Yeah, I think we can still manage with Wijnaldum for now, and Donny van de Beek is a great choice for the next 4 or 5 something like that amount of years. But those are really, if I look at all the number 10s that we currently have, I would say that those are really the only 2 that I would say are absolutely great for the national team. You've got your Davy Klaassen, Prupper, maybe Guus Til, but they're not on a great level. We should be looking at the type of players that are coming up. And then, yes, Ihattaren could be an option. Naci Univar is absolutely, without a doubt, the biggest talent that is walking around right now. So yes, definitely Naci Univar. As you mentioned, he might consider Turkey as well. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. And maybe look into a sort of a system with, let's say, very pacey and rotating players. So then you're going to look at your tactics, but then you've got the fast wingers that can also move around from left to right to centre. And then I'm thinking about guys like Stengs, for example. Ihattaren can also fit that. Bergwijn should be good for the next year's. Boadu, but then I prefer Boadu possibly just a little bit more up front, but it could work.
Just want to pick up that point about the pacey tactics of the Netherlands. It's something that Koeman seems to be building upon. He's using the players at his disposal and also the threat of Memphis Depay up front. We've seen that Daniel Marland's being called up as another striker into the squad. Again, another pacey player who likes to get in behind defences. So there's actually a few questions about Wout Weghorst amongst our selection this week. Thank you to everybody that's sending in their questions on Twitter. Make sure you keep doing that. We're getting more and more each time. For example, Abdul, he said, why is Ronald Koeman choosing Luc de Jong over Wout Weghorst? We've also had somebody else send in a question asking about Weghorst as well, and he said, why isn't Weghorst in the selection? This guy's been scoring plenty of goals in Germany. He's progressed himself since his time at RZ, scored 17 goals, gave 7 assists in 34 Bundesliga appearances last season, scored another 2 goals already this season. So why not Weghorst? Is it, as I was alluding to there, because of the tactics Koeman is presenting, or are there other reasons?
Yeah, it's absolutely tactical. I mean, personally, I love Weghorst, and he'd be my first choice as a proper striker. But what I think Koeman will do, as he has been doing the last, pretty much since he's been appointed, is use pace up front. When the national team gets the ball back, try to get the ball into the offence as quickly as possible, using creative midfielders, or using pacey wingers and everybody up front. Except maybe Babel. Babel is not the fastest, but okay, given he's not slow. But guys like Babel, Bromes, Bergwijn, Berghuis, now he's selected Daniel Malen, they all have good pace. Weghorst is not quick. He's a great striker, he's a good poacher or target man, what have you, absolutely. But he will not actually fit this role that Koeman is looking for up front. We've got Memphis, who's a little bit quicker. Why hasn't he selected Weghorst? Why did he take Luc de Jong? Again, tactics. I think Weghorst is better, but I think Luc de Jong might just be a little bit more clinical. I think Luc de Jong is a better header than a heading goal scorer than Weghorst, which he definitely showed when he was still at PSV. He scored so many heading goals, and I think that might just edge him over Weghorst. But if we were to play a different set of tactics with a pure striker up front, I believe that it should always be Weghorst.
Yeah, for me it's a case of he's going to pick one between Luc de Jong and Weghorst, and it seems at the moment he prefers Luc de Jong. I think that for both of them it's a case of they're going to come into the side if Netherlands need somebody to be in the box towards the end for crosses, and Koeman thinks that Luc de Jong is the best man for that job at the moment. And all Weghorst can really do is just keep doing what he's doing in Bundesliga, scoring goals, and eventually he might get his chance, because from what I've seen of Luc de Jong so far for Sevilla, it's not probably gone as well as he hoped it would have, and he's missing quite a few chances. So if Weghorst keeps scoring, then Koeman can't really continue to ignore him.
Yeah, Weghorst is quite a player who's not just the pole that he used to be, if you like, for the Netherlands. He's really improved his link-up game. It's therefore surprising for me why Koeman doesn't try and integrate him into the starting 11. But let's see what the future holds for the Netherlands, because it's not just about Weghorst and de Jong. There's players such as Maren Boadu who are, again, pacey strikers, who Boadu and Marlon could be the future of the national team themselves. And I think maybe he's thinking quite far down the line actually there, by trying to sort of build up this pacey way of playing, because he knows it will be the future of the Netherlands. Let's go back to the point about Ihattaren and how he's a young player who the Netherlands trying to tie down, because there were two other people that asking about Serginho Dest. He has been impressing, hasn't he, for Ajax, as he's a fullback. He's been playing the wings as well. He has been playing for Ajax at right back though so far this season. He impressed a lot in pre-season. And William was asking, with the USA zeroing in on Dest, when should Koeman pull the trigger and call him into the squad? Because if he waits too long, he might lose Dest to the USA, who he's also eligible for playing for. Kai was also saying that he's one of the best talents that Netherlands have had in a while, and he could be an important piece for the Dutch national team. So again, is it worth tying him down, and is he ready yet?
I think he is a player that Netherlands should be looking at. He's probably the next in line for the right back row. If you had Dumfries and then Karsdorp as maybe the first two, then you'd look at Dest maybe after that. But from what I've seen is Erwin van der Leeuwen, the Netherlands under-21 coach, was asked about Dest and why he's not being called into the squad, and he said that it was something to do along the lines of paperwork. There was a lot of paperwork that would need to be done to switch him. They didn't want to do that just yet. And the USA have obviously seen that Netherlands are starting to get interested and have decided to call him up for a friendly. I think it's the same reason that Koeman said that Morocco wouldn't be able to get Ihattaren now, is because of reasons, behind the scenes, the paperwork that need to be completed for it to be a switch. I know it's not a very solid reason to not pick somebody just because you don't want to do some paperwork, but I think Netherlands still have hope for Dest because USA are just playing some friendlies. We need to see after that if Koeman does have a conversation with him, try and switch him before next time USA actually play a competitive match, because that's when there's the actual risk of losing them, which there isn't just yet.
Definitely, that's a good point with the USA situation. I'm not fully aware of their schedule, but as you mentioned, if they have a bunch of friendlies lined up until, I don't know, somewhere next year, then by all means Dest can even play for the US national team and then still convert to the Dutch national team. So that is something that we could still slightly postpone. Like Ihattaren, always difficult decision. Who's got the better option? Who's more interesting for Serginho? Would that be the Dutch national team? Would that be the USA? I do believe that Dest has been playing really well. Definitely, we were looking at him last season, and we're still doubtful. Okay, is he going to be really good? Yes, he's got bags of potential, but definitely still some question marks. But he's already shown right away this season that he's capable to play in the first team of Ajax. So that's good for him. And the options, the alternatives at right back are not that great, and maybe even left back. So there are quite some possibilities for Dest between, I wouldn't say now, but let's say next year and a few years' time. I mean, Dumfries isn't great. What are the alternatives? Karsdorp isn't great. Kenny Tate isn't great. Paul Verhaag is getting on. Hatenboer isn't great. Do we want to put Veltman as right back? They're not great. So if Dest keeps on getting better, maybe Kiana Hoover, by the way, who's at Liverpool, could be an option. I see I see the guys that we currently have: Dumfries, Karsdorp, Tate, maybe even Janmaat. I wouldn't really want to see them in the Dutch national team, ideally, in 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Yeah, the right backs you mentioned there, they're good right backs, they're just not great. And that is the thing for Netherlands now. They're not looking at good players, they want great players. They want to be trying to accelerate the likes of Calvin Stengs, who was mentioned earlier, to play for the senior side. So I can see why people are calling out for these young players to come in, because they know that they can be the future of the team, and they don't want to be giving chances again and again against people like Kevin Strootman, who keeps getting called up for the squad. They want players now who can accelerate the progress of the whole team and become one brilliant world-class team in a few years' time. And still Koeman's still calling up these other players who, for the time being, might look like the sensible option with games like Germany coming up. But how far down the line should Dutch fans be looking here? Short-term or long-term? That's perhaps the argument. One of the players who's arguably going to be the future of the Netherlands national team for quite a while is Frenkie de Jong. And Football Tings asked a question on Twitter. He said, should Frenkie be playing at defensive midfield or central midfield? I guess what he means is, should he be the 6 or the 8?
For me, the role he's been playing with the national team so far has been perfect, with Darun, beside him. The two of them can mop up. But Frankie's, for me, he's at his best when he drops deep, picks up the ball, and then runs into space, which we've seen him do countless times for Netherlands recently. And he's not getting that at Barcelona in the past couple of games because of Busquets, and that's his role in Barcelona, and their coach Ernesto Valverde, who I know isn't universally loved by Barcelona fans, has been playing him in some sort of weird left midfield / left wing position in the past couple of games, and it's not gone really well for him, and he's not been playing great, and there's been some criticism. But I think when he comes into the Netherlands side, he's got to be sitting alongside Darun, and he's got to be the one that's going to drop deep, take the ball off the defence, and then look for the long balls over the top, or the counter-attacking defence splitting balls for the middle. And that's his best role for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankie is He's multifunctional. He can play several positions, but he's at best as a 6. I mean, he can play an 8. He can play central defender if really needed, but 6 is his best position. So that's ideally what you'll be looking at. You can rotate a little bit if you have, for example, a Jeroen who's capable of doing both positions as well. Maybe someone like Rosario could also work Koopmeiners in the future. Then you've got a little bit of rotation. But Frankie de Jong's best position, and he's absolutely great, is as a 6. So that's what you should prefer, box to box. Do your defensive duties, be creative, and give wonderful passes, and read the game, and win the duels. That's what he's good at.
Yeah, that's his best position. I agree with both of you. He's just far better when he can pick up the ball from deep and just start the moves off for a lot of the goals that the Netherlands can create. By the way, what's happened to Matthijs de Ligt, his old teammate? He didn't have a great start, did he, for Juventus?
Not really.
No, it's a shame because Juventus were leading 3-0 for an hour, and the first half went well for them. Just after the break, Napoli got 3 goals. De Ligt defensively at fault for definitely one of them. He just let Lozano get past him and didn't bother tracking him. The other 2 were suspect, and all the Italian media went really heavy on him because he's such a big purchase and he's meant to be the replacement for Chiellini, who's going to be out for months. And there was big things expected from him. First start, new country, still a young lad. I think it's a shame that he's been given this much criticism. It reminds me of a lot of what happened when he first came into the Dutch national team. That away game against Bulgaria. After that, a lot of people were ready to write him off, and he bounced back from that, and I expect him fully to bounce back from this as well.
Yeah, let's hope, because the season he had last season, people were really quick to be like, well, that's De Ligt for you, being shown out in a proper league, but of course, he's all those brilliant performances we saw in the Champions League and for the Netherlands. Does that mean they counted for nothing? The reaction that he was receiving, it was ridiculous.
De Ligt was he was fantastic last season with Ajax, Frankie de Jong as well. He was also very good in the Dutch national team. He had a bit of a tricky start. I actually believe that in the game against Bulgaria, it was partially his fault. He wasn't the only player to blame. There wasn't a good communication with the goalkeeper, and I think I don't remember who the central midfielder was, but everybody just started slating De Ligt, and I thought that was a little bit too easy. He bounced back wonderfully. His start at Juventus is dreadful. Those things happen. I mean, obviously he's got to adjust and pick up the game, but that might take a month. That might take a couple of months.
The time where De Ligt had that horror show against Bulgaria, I remember writing a really long article about how, the goals were De Ligt's fault, but it was all Danny Blind's fault for throwing him in so early. And I remember writing everything about what went wrong in that performance. I think it was one of the worst performances the Netherlands have produced in their history. It was that awful. But that was a dark time in Dutch football history, and let's hope that we've kind of moved on now. And let's also see what happens to De Ligt now and if he can bounce back from it. Because one player
ideally he'll play the start. He will probably be in the lineup with Virgil van Dijk against Germany and Estonia. Ideally, they'll just play really well, book a good result against Germany, and everybody will say, De Ligt is fantastic, and then he can take that and try and get things going at Juve again.
Well, yeah, it's very quick in football to turn things around.
I've seen John Terry make dreadful mistakes, so...
Well, yeah, and what a legend he's turned out to be. But one player who went to Italy from the Netherlands and didn't succeed so much, or he certainly hasn't so far in the time he's been in Italy, Justin Kluivert, S_Van Den, he said what happened to him, and looking at back on the success he had at Ajax, and the fact that Ajax, they've been doing really well since he left the club, and how little he's done with Roma. He asked how much of a disaster has his move turned out to be.
The biggest thing I would argue about that is how much of a success was he for Ajax? Take away 1 or 2 really good performances, there wouldn't have been many Ajax fans that said he was their standout player when he, was a starter for that 1 year. There was a few highlight reels, and that's really what got him the big move. I think last year he was allowed to time to adapt. He's still very young. He was going to Italy, new club, new language. He had to get used to it. He did a couple of good things, a couple of good performances. Mostly came off from the bench, but he started last week for Roma in their first game of the season. They won. I know he's on the bench again today for their game against Lazio away from home. I think he will definitely get chances to start games. He looks to have put on a bit of muscle from what I saw from him last week. I think he is getting a bit more physically ready for Serie A, and it's only 1-2 games into the season. We can't write him off just yet.
Yeah, I agree. He was decent at Ajax. Very clearly show that he's a great talent. I understand why Roma have gone for him. I understand why he left for Roma. I think it might have been a little bit early for him to move. He would have done well to stick at Ajax for another year, but turn down Roma. That's a tough one as well. But he hasn't done bad. He's not been great in the Serie A, but I've actually checked his stats, and he did play 29 games in the Serie A last season. Okay, he was subbed a lot, he came on a lot, but he was definitely part of the first team. And I think, if you're still a developing player, then for your first year, that's fine. He will need to consistently play this season. Will he? I know it's a little bit too soon to tell. I think it's too early to write him off. Will he be a bust? Will he be a good signing? Is everything turning out for the right now? He's not doing great, but I would definitely give him until the winter break to see how he's developing. If he just gets 7 or 8 games in, then we can decide better. And it still looks like, as Mike said, I didn't see it, didn't catch the game, but he did play in the Serie A already this season. He won't play all the games, but he should definitely get plenty of chances this year.
Okay, guys. That was our discussion about the Dutch national team. It's time to focus now on how the Dutch clubs are getting on. And the news this week's been about the Champions League and Europa League draws. I guess that how I want to sort of go through this is, what are the chances of our 4 Dutch clubs, Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord, AZ, in European competition, given the teams that they've drawn? And I think the place to start should be Ajax and the Champions League. So they've been drawn up against Chelsea from England, Valencia from Spain, and Lille from France. The other 3 teams aren't champions of their countries, which may suggest that Ajax have a chance. What do you think?
For me, I think that the draw could have been much, much harder for them, but it's a very open group, very even group. I think there's 1 or 2 teams in there that, if they play to their potential, can definitely cause Ajax a lot of problems. I think that Valencia, on a day, can be great, on a day can be absolutely terrible. Same could be said about Chelsea. I saw them at the weekend threw away a 2-0 lead against Sheffield United at home. It's not gone very well so far for Frank Lampard in charge of them. And for me, I think Ajax have a great chance of getting out of this group. I'm really looking forward to it. I think that they have, at home, they can beat all 3 of these clubs, and away they can get some results as well. I'm really looking forward to it. I think they have a great chance of progressing.
Yeah, I agree. Tough group, but could have been a lot worse. I think that any of these 4 teams can qualify for the next rounds. I would say that perhaps Lille are a little bit less likely, but they have chances as well. And I do believe that Ajax can beat Chelsea, Lille, Valencia at home. They can also lose. It's going to be tight, but they should be able to get probably 2 wins, maybe a draw at home, and then they'll just need maybe 1 win away from home, and I can see that happen. Chelsea haven't impressed me so far. Valencia aren't fantastic. Lille aren't fantastic. Could have been much worse. It could have been who else could have been drawing? Much better teams for sure. So I do fancy Ajax's chances. Things will have to go their way. Chelsea might have to have a bit of an off day, maybe in London or Valencia in Spain. But well, if not first, then second place is definitely on the cards.
For me personally, I think it's a good draw for Ajax. Although I think we'll delve into it in just a moment about how actually they are a bit weaker than last season, and the reasons why again in a moment. But I predict that we'll see one of these four teams really struggle in the group. And I actually think Ajax might finish third. I just think that it will be a really tight group, and it might well be that a team with 9 points or so progresses from this group because of how tight it may end up being. Let's see how it goes. I think Chelsea are one of the weakest top seeds Ajax could have got. They're a young team, and we've seen that already this season. But Frank Lampard will get the best out of these players, and he will progress them as a group, I think. Valencia will always be a tough Spanish team to play against, and Lille finished well in France last season. So you know, they even though they've lost Pepe to Arsenal, they're a very good team still, very pacey. But yeah, the reasons why Ajax might struggle. Alex asked a question on Twitter, and he was asking about your Veltman. Is he really the best option to start in the centre of defence in the group phase of the Champions League? And that's one of the criticisms I have about Ajax too, Alex. And Mike, I'd like to ask you first about this, because we talked about it a little bit in the podcast in the past, haven't we, and how that Ajax this season so far, even after today's 4-1 win over Sparta, they still haven't started the same starting 11 at all this season. They keep changing it. Erik ten Hag is still experimenting, which is fine, but with the Champions League coming really soon, Veltman in the centre defence?
For me, no. I've said it in our past 2 podcasts. I don't understand why he keeps insisting on playing in Veltman, and I don't know why Veltman's received a call up to the national team. For me, he's a liability at the back for Ajax, and yeah, for me, I just don't really understand why Ajax have fought so hard to keep him this summer. For me, Edson Alvarez looks like a quality signing. I think we saw that in his second half against Apoel Nicosia. I think he was one of the best players on the pitch, and he's got the height, he's got the ball playing ability to drop into the centre, and I want to see him alongside Daley Blind and see how it works. Them two together. I think Martinez looked good in midfield against Sparta Rotterdam. Some of his long range passing, the one over for Quincy Promes' open goal was excellent. But yeah, for me, Joe Veltman should not be starting for Ajax in centre defence. I think he's the third option for right back. For me, and I would even play Pereira above him against some of these teams, because if any of these teams start putting crosses into the box, centre back pairing of Joe Veltman and Daley Blind does not fill me with confidence that they're going to be able to resist headers getting in on goal.
Yeah, Mike, and that seems to be the issue, that there's a bit of carnage going in the box whenever a high ball goes in. Ajax haven't kept an away clean sheet. They've only kept one clean sheet in 2019 away from home. It's clear the defence is an issue. It's the back line, and there's no question about their fullbacks, how they can do really well going forward, especially Tagliafico. But it's that heart of defence. And Jeroen, I was going to ask you, what's going on with this Ajax sort of defensive quartet they've got going on? They've been playing Martinez and Alvarez in midfield, who are both centre backs. Martinez looks like he might do well in midfield, but Alvarez is their big centre back they've just signed to replace De Ligt. Why is he playing in midfield and then Veltman in the centre defence?
Yeah, it's difficult. I actually don't envy Ten Hag, or at least looking at Joel Veltman. Maybe I don't envy Joel Veltman, except for his wages. But I mean, yeah, he can play as a central defender. He can play as a right back, and that is not that big of an issue if you look at the Eredivisie. That will be fine, no worries. But if we look at all the players in his positions, right back, you can have Masraoui, you have Dest, you have Veltman. They can all play. I'm not really sure why he's benched Masraoui. Yeah, okay, he's not played that well, but if you have one poor game, that doesn't mean that you need to be benched. Or maybe the red card. But then centre back, you've got Alvarez, you've got Martinez, you've got Veltman, you've got Schuurs. So that's 4 options for that position. I can see that he would look at Veldman for the Champions League for his experience, because he is looking at all the defenders. Is he the oldest? I think he is. Maybe Tagliafico. But it may also have to do that the new Argentinians are, they've just joined. They're doing well, except for Magayan, who's not been great. But Martinez and Alvarez are good players. I think that they will be the central unit for the majority of the season, but they just needed to adjust a little bit, and then you're fine with bringing Veldman in, at least in the Eredivisie. Yeah, they've had a few defensive bust-ups. Not sure if that is something that you should really be concerned about, but that might be an issue. That is something that you need to work on against the top sides. I mean, if Lille are going to come on, Valencia are going to come on with strong wingers, big strikers, then that might cause a problem. So hopefully for Ajax, let's say the bigger central defenders, and I'm also looking at Schuurs, but he's still very young. So I'm not sure if you want to put too much faith in him on that part. But yeah, you will be looking at those options, possibly ahead of Veldman. Yeah, and I think he's with the Dutch national team to cover for right back. I mean, you've got De Ligt and De Vrij, Van Dijk and Ake at the centre. So you've got Dumfries and Veldman as right back.
Yeah, fair enough. Veldman, for me, he impressed at the end of last season, coming in some of these Champions League games, and I thought he was very good actually in the right back position when Masraoui wasn't available. But I'm just questioning now why he's the sort of lead centre back in the heart of his defence. But yeah, let's see if Ten Hag can sort it. And
originally, he's a centre back from the youth systems, but he's turned into a right back. So yeah, he can obviously still play centre back, but I would say that he's preferred right back.
That's Ajax's chances anyway. Let's have a look at the Europa League group stage draws then for PSV. So PSV have been drawn against Sporting Lisbon for Portugal, Rosenborg from Norway, and Austrian side LASK. Feyenoord have got a tough group in my opinion. Porto, Young Boys from Switzerland, and Rangers from Scotland. And RZ have been drawn against Manchester United, Astana from Kazakhstan, and Partizan Belgrade from Serbia. So, who's got the best chance of qualifying?
PSV.
I agree.
I think there's actually chances for all three, to be honest. But yeah, PSV. I mean, Sporting are going to be really tough. I think Sporting might be better than PSV, but that's fine. Then you'll finish second. You should be able to beat Rosenborg and LASK as well. I'm not saying that's going to be easy, of course not. But let's just look at those four teams. Sporting are very good. Might be able to actually catch a win at home, but let's not count on it. But then Rosenborg and LASK, that should be doable. They're not bad teams, but they're well scouted. We know how they play. They're not going to come up with too many surprises, and especially LASK. I mean, yeah, they could be tough. I mean, you can have your Osijek dramas a few years ago, but normally PSV should be fine, and they should maybe even relatively easily finish second.
It's a good point about PSV there, but I quite like the look of RZ's group, and given how they've performed so well in Europe in the past, Manchester United, yes, they're a tough team, they're a big club from England, they've got a very expensive squad, but are they motivated to play in Europe? You've got Astana and Partizan, and even though they're both very long trips away from home in Europe, RZ are, in my opinion, a better quality team than both of those other teams. What do you think about this, Mike? You said about PSV perhaps being the favourites in their group, but finals and RZ have got good chances too?
Yeah, for me, I've seen a lot of criticism of Sporting so far this season. I know Marcel Kaiser's coming under some pressure. They've lost some big games already. I think that PSV could win that group, and it's going to be vitally important that they finish above LASK just for the coefficient battle against Austria. That's a big game, home and away. For Dutch football. But yeah, I agree with you that AZ, I think they can definitely come are we second in that group? And we saw a couple of years ago, Feyenoord beat Man United at home, and I'm really excited to see how Calvin Stengs, Boadu, Idrissi, Koopmeiners, how they all cope against a team like Manchester United, because I've been making calls for Stengs especially to be given a chance in the Dutch national team, and going to Old Trafford and welcome Man United to what's probably going to be ADO Den Haag Stadium. It's going to be exciting to see how they step up to those occasions. I think Man United, are they going to take this competition seriously? Or Solskjaer's already under pressure. He might rest some players for these games. I think AZ have a great chance, but for me, Feyenoord's group looks for me the toughest. I think Porto home and away is going to be difficult. Young Boys away is going to be very difficult, and Rangers away is also a difficult night. The atmosphere that you can get at Ibrox can be great. Sometimes they've got dangerous players. Feyenoord's defence quite shaky. Rangers have some good strikers. I can see Feyenoord doing the business at home on maybe one or two of those games, but going away from home, can they get the points that they need? I doubt it, but I'd really rate AZ and PSV's chances of progressing. Feyenoord, we'll see.
I think the good news for AZ is that they're the fourth team in the group, so they don't have to. No one's really, people might be expecting it, but nobody's going to say, AZ are rubbish, they didn't qualify if they don't. I actually do fancy the chances, because Astana and Partizan aren't great sides either. Will indeed Man United at some point say, we can't really be bothered, we'll put in a few reserve players, and can AZ steal a quickie? Can they steal a sneaky win? Why not? And then Feyenoord, I do think that they have a chance as well. I don't really rate Young Boys. I don't really rate Rangers. However, you do mention. I mean, 50,000 people at Ibrox. That is going to be tricky. But I don't think that the Rangers and the Young Boys have lost quite a few good players as well. If Feyenoord still clinch a good striker, and they're bringing in a fantastic new central defender from Argentina, they're not out of it. It's not going to be easy, but out of the three or out of the four, then I do believe that Feyenoord will face the most difficult opposition still. But I'm very curious about Marcos Senesi, who seems to be signing.
Yeah, Marcos Senesi is looking like he'll be signing for Feyenoord. It could be a record deal for the club as well, €7 million. Just bringing back to the Rangers match, we had a question from a foreign Rangers fan. I don't speak Afrikaans, but it looks like Dutch, and I can speak a bit of Dutch. I think he's asking us how we think about Rangers' chances against Feyenoord. I think just to... We kind of mentioned it already about how it can be a difficult atmosphere in Scotland. I think Feyenoord's problem is going to be how they can deal with those away matches against Young Boys and Rangers, because it's not so much then about how good the team is. Feyenoord are a youngish team, and actually can their players handle the atmosphere? Can they handle the occasion? Because I'm sure that Feyenoord in their own stadium will have on their own side, and I think that it will put a lot of teams off, and it will give those Dutch players a lot of confidence to go and beat the teams that they're playing. It's a very tough group for Feyenoord, but it's one they can get through for sure. And just a final thing about RZ, a final question to end this podcast. Gareth is asking about the stadium again, and we've mentioned a little bit in our last few podcasts about how RZ's stadium issue could be going on until next season. That at the moment the plan is to remove the roof at Christmas, and then play back in their own stadium after Christmas, and then fix a stadium over next summer in preparation for the new season. And the question was from Gareth saying, will playing away from their stadium have a negative impact on RZ, both domestically and in Europe? And just before I open the floor to both you two, I think personally that the word I'm looking for is the gimmick sort of effect that RZ will have. That we're playing in a different stadium this week. This will be interesting. I think that will only last so long for the club and for the players. I think to start with, the players are going to handle with it quite well. We've seen so far that they've done okay, not playing in their own stadium. but I don't know how long that's going to last. And I think that over the next few months, we could start to see a few tired players going to play in Europe, then going to play in different parts of the country. It's like playing away matches again and again, isn't it? So that's why I think it'll have a negative impact on them.
Yeah, for me, it depends on, the fans are going to want to see these games. The atmosphere, I know from the home leg against, in the last round against Antwerp, the home game that was in Enschede, only 3,000 fans travelled and the stadium was basically empty. At Den Haag, it's a smaller stadium. You're hoping that AZ will sell out, get the atmosphere going. It's going to be difficult, Thursday nights, travelling outside of Alkmaar to go to these games. Hope that the fan base will do that, give the team a lot of support and make it seem like a home game, because if it's in a big stadium with no fans, then it's going to feel really different, and it's not what you expect and not what you want for a Dutch club in Europe to not be supported the way that we know that they can be. You know that Feyenoord's atmosphere on these nights is going to be great. That Ajax's atmosphere is going to be great, and you want that same for AZ in these tighter games that they're going to need it.
Yeah, it's just definitely far from ideal. I'm actually based in Den Haag myself, and I was fortunate enough to actually go to the game, to the Mariupol home game, which was actually an away game because they played it in Den Haag. Atmosphere-wise, hospitality, that was fantastic. The green and yellow, which is ADO's colours, were replaced with the AZ colours, and a lot of things were done to make AZ and also the fans sort of feel at home. Is it the same? No, obviously not. And actually, there was quite a large crowd. The atmosphere was fine. But that possibly also had to do with the fact that it was actually the first Europa League game, so a lot of people were probably like, all right, let's just go there and see what happens. So that was a 4-0 win. A little fortunate. Mariupol were just completely done after the 2-0 and the 3-0. But you can't just think that this will have no effect on the players. It's a travel. It's not massive. I mean, Alkmaar, Den Haag will be like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. But it's still an away game, and one or two away games. It's different surface as well. It's artificial grass and not the grass that the AZ players are used to. It probably won't be that big of an issue for 1 or 2 or 3 games, but if they have to play all their away games until the winter break or maybe even longer, they will slip up a few games. I absolutely believe they will, and this might actually be something that might cost them 1 or maybe even 2 spots at the end of the season in the league standings. I can see them perhaps at the beginning of the season. I could consider a 3rd place for AZ. 4th, maybe 3rd, but now I'm thinking unless if Utrecht keep on struggling, they might even drop the 5th, just because they have the issues with the travel and the away games in Den Haag. It's just not the same.
No, it's not. I feel for the AZ supporters, as I said last week in the podcast, said that are going to suffer the most, I think, which is very unfortunate. Well, Jeroen and Mike, thank you very much for joining me in this week's podcast. And I guess it depends which order you're listening to these in, and if you've got through our entire podcast, 50 minutes long. If you have, and you're waiting for the Germany sort of preview for the Netherlands match, yes, it's going to be up and it's going to be on YouTube. It will be as a form as a video for you to watch as well. So we hope you enjoyed this podcast. There's more content coming out for you too, unless you watch a video already, in which case, well done for getting through a lot of Football-Oranje content. Thank you both for joining me, Mike and Jeroen.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this podcast, and make sure you're liking and subscribing wherever you are. Thanks for joining us.
That is back up! That is back up!
Daar is hij, ja!
Daar is hij! Ja! Ja!
Daar is Klaassen, goal!